Okay, we're live.
Okay, thanks, Susan. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the special session of council for April the 9th, 2020. We're meeting again electronically, and it is available on the Town of Greater Napanee YouTube. I'll call the meeting to order. There is an access to the electronic meeting on the town's YouTube channel. If you go to our agenda, you'll be able to copy and paste the link, but I believe you can also go to YouTube and just search Greater Napanee and it should come up for you. Susan, am I correct in that?
Yes.
Thank you. So after calling the meeting to order, I need a motion for the adoption of the agenda, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kaiser, seconded by Councillor McCormack. All in favor? Oh yeah, we still have to do the roll call. So you know the scoop, just as you're voting, just tell me your ward and I will keep track of the votes, please. And thank you.
Mayor Isbester?
Yes.
Could we add the Jewel Engineering correspondence to the agenda, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, and we do have some information from Jewel Engineering that we need to add to it too. And what will that be under, Susan, please? What section will that be under?
It will be under the report to do with cash flow.
Okay. So if you would add that to your agenda. So the agenda as amended, mover and seconder, fine with that? Thanks, Susan. Okay, Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2, yes.
Ward 3, yes.
4. Ward 4, Councillor Norrie.
Yeah, I think Bob's on mute.
Doesn't have his mic on.
Councillor Norrie, can you unmute?
Sorry, Ward 4, yes. Sorry.
Ward 5, yes.
Kaiser, yes.
Isbester, yes. Carried. Okay, any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof?
Nope.
Seeing no indication. Items for discussion, 4.1. We have a recommendation that we receive and adopt the minutes from the special session of council, minutes of March 27th, 2020, moved by Deputy Mayor Kaiser, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Roll call.
McCormack, yes.
Ward 2, yes.
Ward 3, yes.
Ward 4, yes.
Ward 5, yes.
Kaiser, yes.
Isbester, yes. Motion is carried unanimously. The next we have, CAO service area updates. Now, first off, I guess, Mr. Cowrie, I know that you're on. Did you wish to speak to any of these items, or council? Would you like to take them item by item and go through them? Does council have any questions with Mr. Cowrie on these? And then I know that Ray wants to speak to several of them. Yep, Councillor McCormack.
Could we just identify the items that we want to discuss rather than go through everything?
You sure can, yep. So let's start with Ward 1. Which items would you like to discuss?
An update on the fleet procurement and what the situation is on some vehicles that might be more dire for replacement than others.
Okay, is there anything else?
Scrolling through here. An update on some signage as well. I see there's an item under infrastructure, public works, landfill, and signage. And also talk about an update on the road closings that we have. And obviously, some discussion on the ExploreNet Tower. And a follow-up on the open house that we had for the high water.
Okay, Ward 2.
Yeah, your worship, pretty much what we have the reports on, I mean, obviously the garbage and the staffing report. The only thing, I just want a little bit of clarification on the north side boat launch dock. But I think John covered most of the stuff there. But obviously the stuff that we have staff reports on, I'd like to get a little deeper into, so.
Okay, thank you. Ward 3,
At this time, I don't have anything.
Ward 4,
Just curious about some of the stuff about students, but I'm sure our CAO will be bringing that up.
yeah, actually, we got some more information to bring forward on that, Counselor Nori, but I'll put that on the list. Ward 5,
Thank you.
I read through it earlier and I don't have any questions at this point in time unless something comes up after we have more information.
we'll go through it thoroughly. We want to make sure that with this meeting, we cover everything. Deputy Mayor?
I have nothing to add.
Okay, so get mine out here. So if we start with, let me see what comes first. So if we go through the emergency services, that's all pretty straightforward, no questions on that. Calls for service, no questions on that. Volunteer firefighters, there was no one that requested that, as well as capital projects for emergency services. There were no questions on that one. Public education and enforcement, there was no one that had questions on that one, unless I'm missing something. Now, if we get down to emergency services, fleet, the first question, and Councillor McCormack, I think you had some comments or questions on that one.
Well, just noting that all the orders have been canceled, and going back to when we reviewed and approved the purchase of replacement vehicles, some had higher mileages than others, and it would seem to me that some vehicles might not be in the best of condition in 3, 4, 5, 6 months from now, and I don't anticipate the factories are going to start cranking out new models until the fall. Until the fall, we could identify if there are some vehicles any vehicles that are close enough to what we need to consider a replacement.
Is there someone online, or does anyone else wish to make a comment on this? And then we'll get someone from staff to give us some answers, please. Anyone else wish to comment on this? Councillor McCormack, you're freezing up a little bit. Sometimes we find in these meetings that if we go to strictly audio instead of the video, it seems to catch up, but it just could be your signal down there. Councillor Richardson, did you have some questions?
No, I didn't, your worship.
No, you're good?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, so who have I got on the line that could either give us some input or that we could ask for what we need to take forward out of that?
Madam Mayor, I'm on the line. Rob Surson, General Manager, Emergency Services. So yes, indeed, we did cancel the orders. We did contact both dealers that had tenders that were winning bids, and both of them did tell us they wouldn't be able to fulfill the orders anyways. We did talk to senior staff, and we are assessing which vehicles we are going to have to purchase here. By the look of it right now, it looks like possibly only 2 pickup trucks. The rest are going to get deferred. And the snowplow, it's still on hold, so we haven't made a decision on the snowplow yet. But we are looking at 2 pickup trucks. The plan was to go out for quotes and come back to council with approval to purchase those 2 pickup trucks.
Councillor McCormack, does that answer your questions? Do you have any further comments on that? Councillor McCormack, I think that you're going to need to shut off your video and just go to audio. Otherwise, you're freezing up.
that any better?
Yes, it is actually.
All right.
Okay, do you have any further comments? Were you able to hear the chief?
I caught about 70% of it, so I understand there's 2 vehicles, pickups that have been identified as possibly needing to be replaced. And I think I understood that they're going to be looking into what kind of supply is available to replace them.
Okay. Chief, is that the message?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So did you wish to ask for a report to come forward on that, then Councillor McCormack?
That's
As a-
exactly correct.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, preventative maintenance, fleet policy changes and updates. I don't think there's anything on emergency management compliance reporting, emergency management policy, operations, accessibility reporting, accessibility projects, building permits, and so on. When I get to development services, does anyone have any questions on that, which is a fairly essential duty that we perform every day? Does anyone have any questions on that? Nope, seeing no hands. Essential construction projects. I think we have that under control. Does anyone have any questions of staff as to, or have you had any comments or concerns come from either residents or people that are trying to keep some construction sites going? Has anyone had any queries? Understands what they have. Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate the clarity in that block there, talking about what buildings can and can't proceed. And the next section where it talks about the 3 particular ones, the clarity that residential is still deemed essential, but others are generally not. There was some misunderstanding and confusion about that, what works can and can't go on. And I know we're going to talk more about the Water Street later, but I just appreciated the clarity and the wording there.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from anyone? Okay, so status of various, we're through all of that. Wastewater treatment plants, just holler at me if I'm going through something that you want to bring up, please. The expansion, collection, now the waste collection. Yard waste collection is scheduled for. Any questions or comments on that, council? No, okay, Water Street reconstruction. Public Works landfill, ongoing maintenance and operations. Report there that we have separated the crews into 4 distinct alternate worksite locations, which just about everybody else in the area has done, which is certainly to be able to keep if we do, God forbid, have one of our staff come down with something, especially this COVID, then it's not going to spread through the rest. Signage, Councillor McCormack, you had a question on that?
Worship, I'd just like to, I'm going to close the video, get an update if we could on what signage the town did get for this COVID-19 reminder or prevention, and locations that possibly these signs would have been put up. I noticed that I didn't notice anything coming off the ferry, and I was wondering if that's what we intend on doing, is having some kind of a reminder at key entry points to Greater Napanee or not.
Someone online there from staff that can give us an answer for that. I'm not sure where all the county signs went to from the entrances. Of course, they've got to cover all of Lennox and Addington. Is there someone that can give us some answers on that from the EOC? Okay, so I will just ask for a follow-up and a report. And you're thinking that there is more signage that's needed, Councillor McCormack?
Well, I believe this is going to go on for a number of weeks yet, and late into the summer possibly. And as the weather starts to turn and improve, it's going to be more enticing for people to come out here and hopefully enjoy some vacation time. And I think we need to remind people that there are strict rules on separation and maximum amount of people that can get together and so on.
So a direction to staff would be then to give us a report for our next meeting, or even by way of communication. And I don't know, Susan, whether you want all these to go by resolution or you want them to go as action items like we do in the EOC, but could, Susan, if you could give me guidance on that as to whether you want resolutions for all these action items.
We could do one resolution at the end of the service area update as to what reports council would like to come forward. That would be fine.
Okay, and I'm assuming that you're keeping track of them.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Susan. Okay, so that's something we'd like to come forward.
Could I, if we're done,
Sorry, go ahead.
well,
No, go ahead.
if, can I bring up another point on signage?
Sure.
With the largely province-wide fire ban in place, open burning ban, it was brought to my attention that some people, when they come from out of our town, they come to their seasonal property or whatever, they get off the 401, they drive south through town, they head out here, whatever. They haven't passed a municipal sign that has a burn ban in place. They come, if you're on one of the county roads coming into the city or into the municipality, you'll pass the sign that says burn ban. But if you come in by way of 401 and come and drive within, you never see it. At least it hasn't been recognized if it's there or not. And I'm wondering about that, not necessarily just for this year, but for future, because I know we're getting people burning because they came to their cottage to clean up for the spring and had no idea that the burn ban also applied here because they're just not sensitive to it. Just a comment that's another spot that seems to be deficient for signs is when you leave from the center of town driving out into the rural parts, you don't pass a sign that has a burn ban on.
Okay. What you would like is some information on how we could expand that, not just for during the COVID-19, but for the future too, so they be visible to everyone.
Adam Merritt's, Rob Serson, General Manager, Emergency Services.
Thank you.
So the deputy mayor is correct. There is no sign on County Road 41 when you come off the 401. However, every other road that does come into our municipality does have a sign, and they are posted right now with the that the burn ban is on. Also, too, with the new online burning permit system that we've implemented, by this time next year, it'll be strictly online permits only, and the notification gets mailed out to every single person who has a permit that the bylaw is in place, and when the bylaw will be also lifted as well.
Deputy Mayor? Thanks, Chief Serson. Deputy Mayor, you okay with that?
I am. It's one of those systems that's, it's a good system, but it's imperfect in the sense that if you don't know about the online permit, or if you don't already know, you don't know to look, and people have been burning in their backyards forever. And I think that may be part of the problem. And I think we're very sensitive to it right now as well. But it just seems a piece of information that's getting lost. If you don't go looking for it, it doesn't get put in your face. That's what I'm saying. But I don't think there's perfect. I don't think perfect's achievable.
So I've got to agree with you, because if you come off 401 and head north or south, whether you're coming off 49 or 40 or at 41, you'd see it coming in when you left Hastings and you came into Greater Napanee, but you wouldn't see it on 49 highway. So that might be a good suggestion to look into to see if we can get some kind of signage. Unless I'm wrong, Chief Serson, is there something there? I see your hand, Councillor Pennell. I'll get to you in 1 sec.
I'm sorry, just 41 does not have road signs north or south. Every other road that comes in or out of the municipality does have a sign.
No, you're right. Thank you. Councillor Pennell?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering about the sign that's at Canadian Tire. Is it still there? And if it is, could we, especially for this weekend, have that changed to read no burn?
Yep.
That total burn ban.
That belongs to the county, and I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, it has a warning about the COVID-19. Am I right? Is that what's on it right now? Yeah, it is. So I guess it would have to be a decision as to what it was. Chief Serson, if I could leave that with you to to check in with the county if we can get a hold of someone, and I sure we can, to see if you think that might be a benefit to have that changed for the weekend.
For you, Madam Mayor, yes, I'll do that.
I don't know, I must have been a joke
Sorry.
going.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, just Ray Callery, I think staff can also take a look at some temporary signage at the municipal halls, going both south and north to try and put some signage out. Selby's a little more difficult, but along the fencing there to try and get signage out so people can see it as they pass by.
Great spot. Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Gallery. Anything further? The next one I have is sorry, did I see a hand up there? No. Public Works, ongoing maintenance operations, signage, driveway entrance permits, crack sealing program, bridges, brushing, tree removals, Salmon River Road. I'm not seeing anybody that's picking up on these. SPC tour. So if I go to facilities now, the SPC tour, just so that many of you may not know, through the EOC at the county and through the town one as well. Dr. Kieran Moore from the health unit came in to have a tour of LNA County General Hospital and meet with Dr. Morrison, and he had asked to meet with me as well. He's very proud of what our area is doing to keep this COVID ID under some kind of wraps. And staff from both county and town gave him a tour of the SPC because at some point it may be the area, hopefully they never have to use it, that would facilitate an overflow of critical care patients. So social distancing, please, anybody, if I'm not seeing your hand, I'm trying to read and do this at the same time. Refrigeration plant shutdown is complete. Facility closures. Spring maintenance operations. Conservation Park.
Your worship,
Yes. Yes, Councilor McCormack.
just a question. When they say that staff are continuously monitoring these locations, speaking about closed off areas like the boat launches and whatnot, how do we actually do that on a long weekend? Do we actually have staff out doing checks?
Can someone answer that question, please? I know there's an answer.
For you, Madam Mayor, both the General Manager of Community and Corporate Services and myself are on call this weekend, and we will be enforcing it on a rotating schedule.
Okay, Councilor McCormack.
So if we're aware of something that's going on in our area, then I guess Chief Surson would like us to contact him and let him know.
Yes, please. Am I correct there, Chief Surson?
That's fine. If you contact me, I'll forward it on to the appropriate agencies.
Okay,
Thank you.
Northside boat launch dock. There was a question. Councilor Richardson, did you have a question on that? Yep.
Yeah, just if we could clarify and maybe just a little more information on it. Just it indicates that looking to find a durable solution to this pier. What's happened so far? What's the problem with it? That kind of thing. So.
Okay, so you'd like an update on that, Councilor Richardson?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Staff operations, we have gone over. If I'm getting past anything that people have asked about, please stop me. 2020 budget, asset management, 2019 audit. We're still working on that. It's being done remotely. New milestone dates will be communicated once available. I know that our GM of finance was wanting to have it done for June, but obviously you can tell that we've got some problems in trying to do this. Cash flow analysis. Does anyone want to, I guess, Paul, did you want to speak to this as we're going past this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, we've got a report coming up that really brings together that information. So if we could leave it for then, that would be great.
That's fine. Okay, thank you. Downtown wireless network. There has been, and I don't know whether this is coming up later on in the meeting, but there has been some talk of I think it's something we need to talk about. And please, any staff jump in if it is further in my my agenda, but the downtown wireless network, there are no issues or changes to report at this time. I believe this is something that had been talked about as to, because of the gathering of people, was it something that we wanted to shut down at this point? It certainly maybe isn't a cost savings, but it may stop people from gathering.
Can I ask on that?
You sure can.
Was there a decision from senior management whether to recommend that at this time, or is it just something that they're going to monitor and consider if need be?
Okay, Mr. Zatterberg?
Yes, Your Worship. We did have further discussion after this morning's meeting. And while there are some people using it on the streets, we do not know how many residents are using it. And because there's homeschooling going on right now, and the free Wi-Fi might be the primary source of communication for some people that we're not aware of, it was decided that it's best to leave everything in place the way it is now, and we can do a reassessment of the downtown Wi-Fi after this emergency is completed.
Okay, I appreciate that, because after our discussion, I thought more about it, and I thought that it maybe was something we should allow to continue until we know there's a problem. But if we're just merely anticipating a potential, I don't think that's justification at this time, given those other items. So thank you.
Okay. Server upgrades, did anyone else have anything? Councillor Norrie, do you have your hand up?
Nope, sorry, just
In front of
adjusting my.
okay. Server, network, anything else there? Bylaw enforcement? Property matters, town road closing policy. Councillor McCormack, is this what you were questioning? The road closings?
It was, but I reread it and I can pass on it for now.
Anyone else? Okay, no. Information requests, bylaw review, Municipal Heritage Committee, licensing, communities in bloom. All our committees are on hold, so I'll just go down through that. Economic development, surplus land, tourism, projects are on hold as well. Aquatics Committee, waiting to hear till November on the grant that we applied for. Hometown Market, again, project on hold. Community events, it'd be nice if we'd get out of this by July the 1st and have a big party. Volunteers, back end is set up, of the volunteer software is now complete. Staffing, staff is divided into working groups, providing with pandemic separation. Performance reviews have been currently 20 to 25 home assignments being managed depending on the day. Training, all training is canceled, of course, for social distancing, so much of it cannot be done virtually. And job postings. Now, ExploreNet Tower, there was something, was that in the COA's report? Oh, I've still got more here, sorry. So Councillor McCormack, you would wish to ask about the ExploreNet Tower?
Madam Mayor, it's Ray Callery. I can give just a brief update on that, or I can come back and just run through all the ones I need to update at the end, if whichever you prefer.
Okay, well, how about we do it at the end and then everybody's got their questions.
Okay.
Councillor
Okay.
McCormack, you're good with that? Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Floodwater mitigation for waterfront properties. I believe that's being dealt with as a separate item as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Facility leases, same thing. Review of municipal purchasing processes. Strategic planning. Pool, everything else that's in that really has been put on hold. Tax policy, interest waived until the end of May. Staff investigating and monitoring changes in pandemic situation to determine further recommendations to council on installment dates and interest charges. Cannabis, all provincial meetings are postponed. Bylaws to be followed up on. Nuisance bylaw is here for your consideration today. The OPP contract extension approved by council. So it is extended until December the 30th to deal with pandemic issues. The OPP working group, Police Services Board, Municipal Emergency Control Group meetings, which have been held daily or every other day at both levels. And I know that council has been getting reports on that. Communications, trying to do as much as we can to communicate with both staff and the public, and of course, council. You've got the information there on the Community Development Committee for Trans-Canada. And essential services. Operating, pandemic, there are just so many things that are included in this with bylaw services. And so I think unless there are more questions there that are coming out of this, and I think there was the garbage and the landfill issue, that's being dealt with in a separate as well. So unless there's something else that council wants to bring out of this report, I would like to let Mr. Cowrie speak to us on the questions and action items. Council, are you good with that? You see nodding heads. Okay, so Mr. Cowrie, if you'd like to report on any of those, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll try and just mention the page number I'm on. So if there's any questions. The first one I would like to just briefly talk on is on page 11. There was volunteer recruitment, which is currently on hold. I would like council to know that there has been some issues with regard to volunteer operations as far as for volunteer firefighters who have been laid off from their primary employment. Voluntary income from being a firefighter is actually becoming an issue for them for qualifying for some of the federal funding, income replacement funding. So there has been a very quick letter writing campaign taking place from area municipalities to try and make sure that we have support from all of those who are trying to be volunteer firefighters and making sure we have adequate staffing to get those rules changed so that they're not penalized from their participation on volunteer fire departments. So I just wanted to let council know that there is, if they hear of anything or see of any correspondence, we are part of that conversation, and it's Chief Searson was talking with the Chiefs Association, and all the area municipalities are putting in letters of support for the local volunteer firefighters. So I just wanted to call that to council's attention.
Ray, if I could just stop you there. Does council have any questions? Is everyone aware of what our volunteer firefighters are up against in this? Is everyone aware of the problems that they're having trying to apply for any that have been laid off from their own jobs? A yes, a no?
I think I understand.
Okay, great, thank you. Sorry, Ray.
Oh, that's okay. The next one on page, and I'll go back if I miss anything, but the next one I have is on page 20, which is just the job postings interviews, which I believe Councillor Richardson had asked about. I am going to review that more in detail. There is quite a bit new information with regard to summer staffing in the area municipalities as to what they're doing. There's been out-face changes in the last little bit, and certainly our grants, I can speak to that. But if council's okay with that, I will speak to that on the next report to put all that together with all of the staffing stuff in one update.
Okay, council? Yeah, okay.
Is that acceptable? Okay. There was a question with regard to the lease, the ExploreNet lease at the South Fred landfill site. There hasn't been a lot of new information on that at this time, Councillor McCormick. Staff have sort of set that aside right now with a few of the pandemic issues, and I've reassigned some staff with flood management that they're working on those projects. So there isn't anything new to report on that, but hopefully we will for the near future. The next one I have on here is floodwater mitigation. So obviously we wanted to follow up from the South Fred meeting that was held, the open house. There has been information is now flowing to the consultant. There was a slight delay due to some of the pandemic. We have identified the property owners who wanted to participate, and they have their information is being forwarded to the consultant to review detailed property information. Having said that, we just received quite a bit of new information over the last couple of days. Staff have researched a few sources as far as suppliers. There are not a lot of what I'd call local suppliers, but there are certainly suppliers in Ontario, a few suppliers in Ontario, Quebec, and suppliers out west of flood management or flood mitigation tools. Of course, the largest issue is sandbagging. With conversation both with the consultant and with a pandemic currently going on, you can't socially distance and sandbag. Between the weight of the bags and the actual process of sandbagging a property, it doesn't make a lot of sense with a pandemic going on. So other options are what are being explored. There is in the attached the service area update at the back of it, a draft of a public notice that we would like to send out to every person who attended and left their contact information at the South Fred. We would also be putting it out generally as part of a update to the community as to where things are as far as what we can and ways of getting help. And we can proceed with providing some additional information on some of the sources. We are trying to follow up. There was 2 additional companies that had provided information back when we did our initial report that can be added to that list. But right now, our main communication to landowners is to make sure that A, they've talked to their local insurance providers so they understand exactly what their policy does provide. That social distancing and sandbagging is a real issue. We want to get that message out, and that there are some possible alternatives, but we need we can try and link people up, but we can't necessarily be in the business of providing those at this time.
Okay.
I'm not sure if council wants to discuss that further at this time, or if they want me just to finish and then come back to it.
Any comments or questions? No? Okay.
Okay.
Oh, Councilor McCormack, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to compare Greater Napanee and Prince Edward County. So regardless of the fact that I also believe that the sandbags and the sand it's not feasible. Prince Edward County came out weeks ago, unfortunately, of the pandemic, sort of lost our way right with how we were tackling this high water, particularly high last year, and they're looking for the town to give them some kind of recommendation. So I look at the draft.
Sorry about this, everybody.
I'm not hearing
No.
just about anything over here.
Is anyone hearing anything?
No.
Oh, this virtual system is good, but it's sure far from perfect.
Did we lose John altogether?
I think we have.
Yeah.
Susan,
I can see across the bay, and that part of the world is still there. So it must just be an antenna, maybe whipping in the wind.
I'm back.
There, you're back. Yeah, we missed, I would have to say 99% to Councillor McCormack because you were fading in and out.
Well, what I could do is maybe send an email to council after the meeting, just reiterating what I'm trying to get across, which is I would like to be able to tell the residents more than just call your insurance or that. I'm trying to get more information for the residents, and I think we can do that.
Susan, is that allowable?
All right, just need clarification.
Yeah, Councillor McCormack is fading, not personally fading, but his virtual attendance with us, he's having trouble down there. He would like to be able to get the information of what he has, a written statement of, as how his feelings are about the waterfront protection and how he'd like to see it go forward. Can he send us the information by email?
Yes.
There you
I
go.
would like to jump in if I could, because I know that John mentioned Prince Edward. I picked that up. And over in the county, they were making bags and sand piles available, but on a self-serve basis that people could come and bag on their own and take the sandbags home. And of course, most of the residents of the south end of the municipality are very aware of what happens in the county by comparison to what happens here. And I think if I can guess that John would like to be able to tell his constituents something along the lines of what we can and will be doing, because by comparison, doing nothing is obvious. And I'm certainly getting calls too from people who want to know that we're doing something for them. I take some positive light from the fact that it looks like the projections are we're going to be below 2017 levels. We currently are below 2017 levels, and should stay there, maybe, probably. But that's small consolation for people who still have waves lapping at their shore. So that's what John wants to be able to do, is to tell people something that we are proactively doing for them on their behalf.
Okay. Yeah, Councillor Richardson.
Would it be a fair question to ask our consultant what they are able to provide for us, because we're getting questions now? Would that be a fair question to ask or no?
Anything's a fair question to ask.
Madam Mayor, sorry.
Go ahead. No,
If
go
I can
ahead.
try to answer Councillor Richardson's question. So the consultant to date has provided links to 3 companies that they believe provide solutions other than sandbags. On initial review, it appears that the links to the consultants' service providers are fairly large systems. So they're meant for probably, a mile of shoreline type thing to try and solve it on a much larger scale. There are some links that staff did research for some companies. There's one in the Coburg area, and the other company I think was in the Thornhill area that provides some smaller systems. We want to make sure that the issue with everything we're reviewing is that they're not, every system isn't proper for every particular property, and most of the sites do recommend that some pre-engineering be done, or the company provide some pre-engineering prior to somebody installing it, just so they're not purchasing a system that may fail. So we want to be cautious. We obviously, from a staff perspective, we want to provide as much information as we possibly can to our residents as quickly as we can to deal with the waters as they change. But we're afraid of making any particular company or recommending any particular company, because they're not all universal type systems, is where we're from the staff perspective.
I guess I can appreciate that, because like every residence has different needs and requirements. So in order to establish what each individual residence may need, you'd almost have to have somebody attend the property and do an assessment right from the property, I would guess.
And if I might speak,
sorry.
if I might speak to that as well, Councillor Richardson, it is unfortunate that this could not carry forward, because it was a good resource, which we took a chance on, which the staff has done a lot of work on. And of course, he's caught in the same situation that we are. Believe it or not, flood prevention is not an essential service. So it really puts his company and everything in there. And I think that we've done fairly well with digging a lot of stuff. I wish it could have gone through until the end, because he could have done it without even being on site, just through topographical. But I appreciate your comments. But now I think that with Councillor McCormack's information, and ideas that we do need to carry forward to put something out there. I don't really want to fill sandbags, thank you.
Well, I would think point filling sandbag is almost unrealistic, I would think, by the sounds of it, just with the conditions that are placed in communities now.
Yeah, and anybody that we talk to, and I know that Councillor McCormack would probably speak to this better, but he's visited some of the spots as well. And most of them are saying at 72 or 73 or 75, they really don't want a heart attack. And we've just been caught between the devil and the deep blue sea starting March 13th, which we thought that that would be really well prepared by then. So going forward, that's what we need to work at, is at least some option, in my opinion. Councillor McCormack.
I would just like our public notice to be more inclusive. If we can, Ray, identify 1 or 2 suppliers that we feel are a better choice than East End of Quebec, Calgary, or something like that, and explain that the town has investigated sand and sandbags, and we feel that the appropriate way to try and and so on.
Okay, thanks.
They keep
Anything-
losing the connection, so.
Anything further the council would like to speak to that? No. Okay, Ray, did you have anything further on that?
I'm not sure if Councillor Pennell had his hand up there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't got him on my screen, so.
Okay. Thank you, Worship. I hear what Councillor McCormick is saying, but if we do put any links to any companies that we haven't thoroughly worked with before or investigated, that we definitely make sure that we have some kind of a statement on there that the residents do their own due diligence for sure. I would hate for somebody to say, well, the town of Greater Napanee recommended this to me and it didn't work out for me, or it wasn't what I was looking for. So I just always a little bit careful when we recommend something.
Certainly. Yeah, Councillor McCormack.
Oh, no, I'm just saying that's good. I agree with that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ray, anything further on things from your CAO's report, the service area updates?
Just on the last page with regard to the 3, I guess I'm going to call them the 3 outstanding matters. One, the roads related capital projects. There has been a lot of information brought forward over the last 24 hours with meetings between the local CAOs, the county TAC committee, and our staff attended some sessions with the Good Roads Association as well in a webinar. And I think when we get to the legal report that staff can provide much more information, that the chart is there with regard to all our capital items. And I think it would be appropriate time for staff to speak on those changes and those issues at that time, if council's okay with that. I know we have a report for the landfill coming forward, and I can speak more on the human resources postings as well. The other 2 items on there that don't necessarily have a report today that staff are looking at specifically are grass cutting. Exactly which grass cutting is going to be an essential service and which grass cutting is going to be how we move that forward. Our current approach is to look at grass cutting on a 2-week basis. We need to make some decisions next week as things start to green up, on how we approach which properties. We are trying to take a look at what our neighbors are doing as well, so we have a similar approach. We did confirm, I think, that the county is going to try and maintain the lawns around their municipal properties. There was some discussion whether that was an essential service or not an essential service. From a civics pride perspective, I think that there's something to be said for that as well. So we're trying to get a handle on which properties to maintain. We do know that we believe that there's some major decisions being made around the 1st of May for some of the national sports associations, which will dictate probably the amount of maintenance that some of our sports fields may need over the course of this summer. But we are trying to monitor that. There's a balance, I think, that staff are trying to achieve, which is what is essential, what's the best use of our staff resources at this time. And what then becomes a risk. I know that we've had a number of discussions around the fact that roadsides, especially in agricultural areas, to make sure that we don't have interference between noxious weeds growing in our roads, along our roadsides, that are causing problems for agricultural operations. Those are the types of conversations we're having right now. We haven't, I like to say staff have a definitive answer, but at this point in time, we don't. We're certainly looking at this on a sort of every 2-week cycle, starting with next week. But certainly if council has any conversation or any direction that they would like to provide at this early stage, that's certainly why we wanted to have it on this report.
May I jump in?
You sure can.
On the roadside cutting, that typically happens later in the spring or early summer, June-ish. And that tends to be larger piece of equipment, like a tractor with a side mower. So it's not something that's trailered out. It's driven from the yard to the job site and back again. The only hitch is if they are parking it somewhere remote and needing a pickup to get back. But that may be far enough out that it's not an issue. But I would also point out that when there's two kinds of weeds, there's nuisance weeds and noxious weeds. Noxious weeds, we're required by provincial law to control them on our properties. So that might be something that needs clarification from a legal perspective as to whether we have to mow them if they're noxious weeds, because we do have that legal requirement. And I also wanted to put in, because we did talk about this on Tuesday, in parks and playing fields, if you don't have some minimum level of maintenance, and maybe every other or every third week is enough, you can dynamically change the grass. And so it's not just about it looking rough or that civic pride you mentioned, but it may mean having to reseed in the future or rework that sports field in order to reestablish a good grass stand. So there's protecting the asset, if you will, is the other side of it. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Anyone else from council wish to Councilor Richardson?
Yeah, are we gonna, did you want to weigh in on the grass and stuff now, or did you want to wait till later? I mean, I'll weigh in on the grass now if you want, so.
Well,
Or I can wait, it's up to you.
I think, no, I'd say go ahead, Councilor Richardson, because I think anything that we need to talk about, unless you're going to get into the hiring of staff and students, and then that would wait till the end.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to head with it. I was going to save the grass conversation to the hiring of students, because I know that the students do a lot of the grass cutting for us. So that's why they were kind of interconnected. So I didn't know whether you wanted to talk about that now. We can wait and talk about it later. But
yeah. Then maybe with your suggestion is we will do it when we talk about the students, if that's okay.
Yeah, okay? That's originally how I was going to do it anyway. So yeah, thanks.
Perfect. Yeah. No, and it's got to be a fulsome discussion, because we've got tons and tons of money in a lot of those things, plus all kinds of other reasons why we should do it. Now, any other comments or questions? Ray, have you finished your anything that we need to know on the questions that have been asked on your update?
I think I covered off all the ones I had made a note of for council questions on the report. So unless there's additional issues that council wants to discuss, I have nothing further.
And it isn't like we can't deal with them as we go along, as they come out of other reports too. So we do have a recommendation before you that council receive for information the service area updates report dated April 9th, and from the discussions of council that the reports as noted in the resolution would be dealt with by staff and information come back to council. Does that sound reasonable? Is that okay? So moved by Deputy Mayor Kaiser, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Any further comments or questions? Susan, you're good with everything that you need?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so roll call again, please. Where did John?
McCormick looks frozen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, Ward 2?
Yes.
3.
3 yes.
4.
4 yes.
5.
5 yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Kaiser, yes.
Isbester, yes. Carried unanimously. So on to, thank you very much, everyone. On to 4.3, CAO current employment postings processes. So you have a report before you. I'm just going to bring it up on my screen here. Any questions or comments of council regarding this? I'm seeing any hands. It's fairly straightforward as to where we are.
Madam Mayor, if I may, it's Ray Callery. For council's information, when this report was originally drafted, and I want to focus on the area of summer students, because that is certainly, I think, one of the key components as far as one of the bigger issues in the report. From a summer student perspective, the original conversations that we had with our neighbors around the county from the CAO perspective was that certainly based on the pandemic and based on the length that was projected, that there wouldn't be a lot of summer student hirings in the area. We reviewed each of our operations individually as managers to take a look at what we could and what we couldn't do from a summer student perspective. I think one of the biggest issues, well, there's a few issues, but one of the issues from the grass cutting perspective that was a concern in the parks and facilities area was simply the way that we manage the crews. They normally work in groups of 4 for both safety and implementation purposes in the past. That creates some difficulty with social distancing. There was also some concern with regard to ensuring we could get appropriate training done either online or with social distancing, especially when it required training specific to equipment. Having said that, though, over the last 24 to 48 hours, there has been a number of changes. One being the federal announcement on the 100% funding of minimum wage for going ahead. That certainly has an implication on the financial expenditure itself. We do currently have 9 applications out for summer student grants. Last year we had 10 out and received 1. We were hoping today to have some information before council today on the number of approved applications we would have. We don't currently have that information yet, and I was just checking my email to see if anything came in the last few minutes, and it hasn't. So we're currently sitting with 9 applications out. We're not sure how many approvals we may get on those applications. Obviously, moving ahead with some of the conversations about keeping up around properties. Also, we would have 1 student normally that would be working on our GIS program, which would be very advantageous, and as well as some support for IT services as well in the normal summer student programs. What our staff staff talked today, and I think what we would like to change our recommendation in the report is to, we have applications in at this point in time. We have received applications and that process is closed. We are recommending to council that we hold off hiring until we have some information on the number of grants that we have approved, which we're hoping to have very shortly. That we look at an evaluation the first week of May of summer students based on how this pandemic is proceeding and what operations may change over the next few weeks. And that we also then re-review again the first week of June to take a look at summer students again and starting dates. We do know that Loyalist Township has done interviews for theirs, but we believe their starting dates won't be until probably July 1st for their students. We did look at our operations, and certainly Mr. Dafoe's on the listening to the call as well, is that we can currently move around some of our full-time staff to try and to keep some of the general maintenance up, but obviously a lot will be dependent on whether or not we have soccer pitches and ball diamonds in operation and how that relates back to the start of the hockey season. Because if the inside ice needs to go back in. We need at least 3 weeks prep time from the time that somebody makes a decision on putting ice back in to getting it in on both surfaces. That takes away from obviously a lot of people we could assign to the outside work if we then have ice equipment and ice surfaces starting as well. So the staff recommendation on summer students is the change in the report. We're suggesting an evaluation on May 1st and a reevaluation on June 1st. We would ask council for permission for training purposes and for quick implementation, is that if for this particular year, we could highlight staff that have already been trained in previous years, so have already had some training, the health and safety training and those types of training, so they could start quicker without having to try and implement those if council was willing to consider that as well. But that's sort of the update on that particular report at this time.
Sorry, Mr. Cowrie, I knew I was supposed to go to you on that. I've got it right in my notes. Council, let's have the discussion on this, please. Anyone wish to speak to this? Yeah, Councillor Johnson, I'll go to, and then you, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor. I certainly understand that our primary concern has to be the health and safety of any students that are hired. And any positions they're hired for need to be evaluated on that basis first. Having said that, I think it would be really encouraging to the community if we could at least find placement for some students. This is going to be a year where all students have a very difficult challenge finding work. As with regards to the grass cutting, I agree with the statements that were made by Councillor Richardson and Deputy Mayor Kaiser that perhaps we can look at reducing the amount of grass cutting so that although the depth of the grass may be deeper, we certainly need to control the weeds, but we can't lose the total health of the properties because it would be too expensive to bring those back. So perhaps between those different things, we can find a balance. Staff, and I would just trust staff to find that balance. They have pride in the work they do in those areas themselves.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Richardson?
Yeah, I'd be supportive of pushing them forward with the hiring of the students, and quite honestly, if we can hire them, the sooner the better. I thank Ray for the information on the update from the federal government. I caught just the last part of it on the news last night with respect to the 100% funding of summer students. So I didn't catch the first part of it, so I wasn't sure exactly whether it would apply to us or not, but it appears as though it probably will. So that's a big burden that takes it off our mind as far as a financial aspect. But as far as, the grass cutting and stuff, we have to maintain this year, and I can attest to this, is going to be an extremely bad year for the tick population. And one way in order to maintain the tick population is to keep the grass cut. Like I say, out this way, I know for a fact that we picked a large number of ticks up our kids' dog just on the weekend. So the longer we let the grass grow, the better chance we've got the ticks to migrate towards folks that may not be experiencing that problem. So as well as what the deputy mentioned with respect to the weeds, and I think Councillor Johnson brought up as well, it takes a lot more time and effort to get rid of these things is if we keep the grass cut and maintained. And we also want to maintain some form of normalcy for our community as well. I would just hate to have to drive through town and see the boulevards and the soccer pitches and everything growing up like an unmaintained hayfield, So I think it's very important that if we have the ability to hire these students and we have the ability to train them and put them into safe positions for cutting grass and stuff like that, then I think we should take advantage of it. And I'm sure that the students that apply would fully respect that as well. I know that once this pandemic comes to an end, things go back to normal. Those kids are going to need that money. They're going to need those jobs. So it's going to relieve a lot of pressure on a lot of parents within our community for sure. So.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Anyone else? Councillor Pennell?
Thank you, Worship. I agree with not letting a field go. If we drive down the 401 in Westbrook, and we can see that an old golf course has gone back. They've let it's almost a hayfield now. My only concern is that if we go and hire some students right now, and especially with this 100% pay, that we're hiring them because of that. If we have staff that can do it, and you know, if they have the time to do it, I'd rather have the staff do it right now so that we don't get into layoffs or something, because I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse here. I think that we're in this for the long haul. It's going to be a lot longer than the 2 dates that Mr. Cowrie has mentioned of May and June. But I do have a question. Is there any way, and you're going to have to excuse my ignorance here of it, but if we hire these students and put them through training, could we just have them like sitting there on call type of thing, or is once that they're hired that they have to go to work right away?
Anyone want to speak to that? I think I know what the answer is, but.
Sorry, wrong button. As far as hiring, we can make the contracts. What we have when we make the contracts, we can make them up to a certain number of hours per week. So in the past, in some cases, we've had contracts that are either 35 or 40 hours a week. We've done that to make sure the students understand that they have what they can expect, and they can do the calculations what they might make over the summer, so that we don't have them sort of come and leave partway through because they think they have a better offer of 40 hours a week somewhere or 35 hours a week somewhere else. I know Loyalist's plan, I think, from what I understand, was to take a look at not starting them until July 1st and then going from there. We can try and stagger the starts. The only time in a contract we get into an issue is if we said that we were going to start them, for instance, on May 1st for 35 hours a week or 40 hours a week for the summer, is if we decided to postpone that, then we would have we'd have some legal obligations we'd have to fulfill as far as what we committed to those councils. But we can say up to so many hours, and that's the understanding. The downside of that is they don't know exactly what they're going to make for the summer. So, but I think right now summer jobs may be tough.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Richardson?
Yeah, just, and I thank Dave for bringing it to my attention. I want to mention earlier, so that we do have to keep in mind that our employees are being stretched and pulled in many directions as it is. Once we add the grass cutting jobs to their repertoire, we're going to stretch them even farther than we really should. And that's my concern. So, I mean, if we normally, you know, even if we had lawnmowers, 10 kids running whippersnippers that our full-time employees don't have to do. So I just don't want to wear out our employees more than we already have. I mean, anybody that's still going to work now in tough spots, and you can see that within the community now, that they're getting tired. The people at the grocery stores are getting tired. And I just don't want to, if we have the opportunity to bring in help and we can do it safely, I think we should do it. So.
Further by council? Okay, so I think, and we'll jump in here anytime, I guess the decisions that need to be made here, have we had complete confirmation that grass cutting and maintenance of this type I know what the answer is, has it been deemed essential by the provincial government? Sorry.
That's okay. Sorry, Madam Mayor. I think that is a point of conversation as to what is essential. There was some new interpretations that just came out from legal today on as far as municipalities, what is, and we're just reviewing that. So obviously we wouldn't want to step on outside the bounds of what is essential. But certainly talking to neighboring municipalities, they are looking at civic, having people still feel comfortable that the civic government is operating appropriately, and certainly when sports fields or things reopen, we would do basic maintenance to make sure we didn't lose our infrastructure until sports fields were open. But if they're open, I think we have to plan on how we work best with the community to keep things moving. So I think that's the only way I can answer that at this point in time.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I deem it essential because if we let them go too far, it's far too expensive to bring them back. Plus, it is the perception of the public. When will we know how many students that we have been authorized for through our applications?
Sorry, so there's no commitment on the date. There was a lot of conversation back between on a conference call yesterday, and I know that our MP has been working very diligently to try and get us additional information as to when those announcements are coming. So I can't make any guarantees on those announcements. They have sometimes been later after our hiring's actually done, because we know normally we never get full coverage for the amount of summer students we have normally 14 summer students, and last year we had 1 grant. We try and cover off as many grants as we can, obviously, and we have 9 applications. So I can't answer the question as to how soon we have them. I think the direction that staff would probably need from council is whether they want us to proceed with the normal number, proceed with a partial number as of, I think I understand council's direction right now is to try and move ahead soon, not to delay it. Whether they want us to do all of them or do a first set, and then after we know the number of grants, do a second follow-up round of hiring at that point in time, and whatever council's direction is, that would be very helpful.
I've just got a couple more questions, Ray, if we could, just because I want council to be able to make the best decision that we can on this. What's our normal hiring date? What's our normal time for bringing on students?
So in a normal year, our interview process would be pretty much done now. We normally go through a process. If we have hiring 14 students, it wouldn't be unnormal for us to have probably to go through about 20 contract offers. We normally have 5 or 6 students that accept an offer and then decide they had a better offer and leave our employment before they even start. Training is done the last week of April in a normal year, and the students start somewhere between May 1st and the middle of June, and then they end. So they run 13 weeks to 16 weeks, depending on the contract.
Okay, so we had talked about hiring students that we had on staff before, so they wouldn't have to go through training. Is that within the labor laws? Is that within the transparency laws? Are we going to be hung up by the ankles, I'll say, for not doing a full interview process?
Well, I think that students, through the normal interview process that we do, there's a number of factors that are taken into consideration as far as how the hiring process or how students are graded when they go through the interview process. Obviously, we always look at current training they have, references, certainly employees that we've had working for us before. We certainly know good habits or other habits that we need to be aware of. So certainly it's never, there's never any guarantee that an employment in 1 year brings about employment in the next year. But certainly those are factors we can take into consideration in the hiring process. For the sake of, I guess, transparency, to your point, Madam Mayor, at this point in time, it is one of the things that we can shortlist candidates for as far as interviewing for. It doesn't have to be the only issue, and I have not seen any of the applications that have come in, so I have no idea the numbers. I'm assuming there are some that were here before, but I'm not sure how many of those would there be, and we would very well likely have to go to positions beyond that, depending on the number of summer students we fall out at the end of the division.
And I've only got a couple more. Sorry, council. I just want you to have all the information. There also is an exit interview that is done by their supervisor. So there would be more information there.
Sorry, yeah, all summer students at the end of their contract are given a bit of a questionnaire to get information from them, but we also then do a follow-up questionnaire on all the students, which is a little bit like a mini performance appraisal that gives us an opportunity. That information is obviously kept and held for the purposes of future references and those types of things.
And my last one is, it is still stipulated that they're returning to school in the fall, although they're still saying that we can hold them over until February of 2021. So I'm not sure how that's working.
Well, currently our process has always been for summer students to be students that are returning. So that was more of a council sort of direction or initiative that we're assisting those that are trying to go back to school, that they were actually student positions as opposed to adults that are hired back into the summer or a short-term contract position in the summertime. That was more of a council direction. In this particular case, yes, the grants can go through to February, and I think they did that for a lot of the benefit of a lot of local businesses who possibly have cashiers or things like that that they've hired that are going back to local colleges or universities, that they could be continued on to help them get back, get their businesses back up and running fully. It's possible that something like that might be beneficial for the GIS software or an IT position for us at this point in time, but certainly from a budgeting perspective, which obviously if we're getting almost 100% of the minimum wage, that goes a long way towards extending budgets. But at this point in time, they would either be 13 or 16-week contracts with the possibility of an extension at the end.
Yeah, and I guess too, then we could probably look for other things that if they decided they were going to carry it over until February of 2021, I'm sure that there are projects that they could be working on to get information such as maybe even work for heritage, but property standards. It could be a whole learning process. I see that it would be something else. I've asked a lot of questions there. Council, have you got any questions? Oh, yeah, Deputy Mayor Kaiser.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think I'd like to think that Ray's heard a pretty clear indication from council so far that there's an interest in doing what we can to help these students with their potential for summer employment, potential for income going back to school. But having said all that, I do agree with the idea of holding off until we know about the Canada Summer Jobs Grants, until we know about what is essential and what isn't, especially from the grass cutting, which is a key portion of the summer students. Maybe leaving two simple dates of May 1st and June 1st maybe isn't quite enough. Maybe we need to be sort of reviewing it on a weekly basis, at least internal to the senior management, we're reviewing it on a weekly basis through April. And as these bits of knowledge come out and are aware, then maybe we can move a little quicker than waiting until May 1st, just to get these summer jobs in place. But otherwise, I think Ray's on the right track, and I agree with where senior management moved today with their new recommendation, just that maybe we need to be a little more dynamic through the month of April as we learn these bits of things that we're waiting on.
Would you like to make that by way of motion?
Done.
Okay, Susan, have you got what you need there?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion, and then we can have more discussion? Councillor Richardson seconds it. Any further discussion? So just so that I'm understanding, it will be reviewed on a weekly basis by senior management. We would need information as to what grants that we have been given grant money for, and that could change overnight, you know.
If I may, Your Worship, I think just the intention of what I said was that senior management would stay aware and up to date on the grants, on what's essential and what isn't. That may become a municipally determined element anyways, to some extent, and that when they're ready to, let's say, make the move to do some hiring, that a recommendation could come forward at the earliest possible convenience, maybe even a special meeting for the purpose, just to get it in place, that we may not be tied to May 1st, but it could happen sooner.
Perfect. Everybody good with that then? Any further questions or comments? I think that covers it all. Thank you, Max, for clearing that up. Okay, we know what we have to do here. I'm going to call a question. Ward 1.
Armac, yes.
Okay, yes. Yep. 2.
Yes.
3.
Yes.
4.
Yes.
5.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
Isbester, yes. Okay, carried unanimously. So that is 4.3. So 4.4, infrastructure services, environmental services, waste disposal. You do have a recommendation and a report through there. Who's speaking to this this report? Peter's, I believe, from the home office.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. I'll speak to the report.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So, Council, do you have any comments or questions for Andrew before we decide what you would like to have done on this? Because I know that you do have a lot of questions that were being questioned by a huge amount of a large amount of people on this, simply because they've got stuff that they want to get down there, which a lot of it is brush. I would like to remind you that before we get too far into it, is that Dr. Moore of the KFMA complimented our LMA today on how well they have been doing in keeping everybody at home and trying to get things to so that we don't have all the problems with social distancing. So I just think we need to keep that in mind when we're thinking about this and what we might be exposing, not just staff, but the people, the patrons that would use it. And I'm not trying to do that for influence. I'm trying to do it for information, because I did ask him directly what his opinion would be. And of course, he'd like, especially for this weekend, everybody to stay. The longer that we can keep people away from gatherings, the better off we're going to be. But from there, Council, I'm going to let you, oh, sorry, Andrew, did you wish to speak?
Before I lose the feed.
If I could, just quickly, Your Worship. I just wanted to follow up on Councillor McCormack's questions about the South Fred Tower quickly as part of this report, just because it's wrapped up in waste. So just so Council's aware, weeks ago, borehole testing was completed. So the construction is ready to start. The holdup in that project is that because the site operates under an environmental compliance approval, we had to go to the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks and get an amendment to our ECA. And that's the current holdup with that project. And then I just about the report in the discussion section under option 2, just to clarify, we can't change the hours of operation at that site because they're listed in our ECA. And I just wanted to make that clarification known.
Okay, Council. Questions or comments to Andrew, please?
Can I start?
Yeah.
I really like the way Andrew pronounces my last name. And I would like to recommend that we go to option 3, number C. Recommend and that we do reopen the allow yard and bulky waste with no contact between staff and residents.
Yeah. Councillor, did everyone, everyone able to hear Councillor McCormack? As I know he was breaking a little bit.
I got it on 3, but I think John made some specific points and I didn't get them clearly. If it's option 3 unaltered, then that's clear enough for me.
Councillor McCormack, can you?
Well, I identified the last options C for Charlie under option 3, which only allows yard waste and bulky waste, goods and recycling collection are offered out curbside. So that's what I'm looking for is for the dumps to be able to reopen and accept yard waste and bulky waste.
is option, okay, Councillor Richardson, sorry, I was going over.
And no, that's all right. Continue what you're doing, Worship. I'll wait. I'm here for the
Oh,
long.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, and I guess I'll counter to Councillor McCormack, is I'd like to see the dump open as reasonably close to as normal. I mean, there's lots of people that have yard waste, but there's also lots of people just driving around the area that have trucks and trailers full of household waste and you know, old lawn chairs and things like that need to go to the dump. And I don't want to confuse the community any more than we already have. I mean, we can keep it very simple and just say there's a flat rate, as I think there is anyways at the dump. The flat rate is, you know, you get in line. I like the idea that in option number 2, you know, you've got somebody at the roadway to explain how it's going to work so that they don't get inside the gate and all of a sudden realize, oh, geez, this isn't what I was expecting. So it's explained to them at the roadway. If they don't like the rules of the roadway, they continue on. They can be indicated that to bring the exact amount of change or the exact amount of money for a load. They're under the understanding that if you're going to the dump, you're paying for a load. You're not going to go to the dump and pay for 1 or 2 bags because there is free pickup at the roadside. I just don't want to put any more restrictions and confuse this whole dump issue any more than really it could be, or maybe it is. So I think with some fine tuning and some tweaks that we probably could follow through with option number 3 and give the opportunity to the folks that have been home for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, that have been cleaning up and doing marvelous jobs with their yard, to get rid of some of this so they continue to do that.
So you're
just,
saying, sorry, go ahead, Councillor McCormack.
well, the way I read option 3, it gives 3 solutions. And I'm suggesting the last one, which includes bulky waste and yard waste, but it excludes recycling and normal garbage because we have curbside pickup for that. So I think Councillor Richardson and I are somehow even. But the way I read it, A, B, and C are 3 options, alternative options under option 3. I don't know, Andrew, am I reading this wrong?
That's correct, Councillor McCormack. So option 2 was to allow the sites to open with precautions and all services available. Option 3 is to still proceed with all the precautions, but gave council some options in regards to which services we would offer.
See if that falls in line with what you'd be good to go with.
Councillor Pennell?
Thank you, Worship. Unless I'm missing something horribly here. I thought that we took care of this in our last meeting, and that there's ways of getting rid of this stuff. There's Napanee Waste Solutions on Highway 41 is open Monday, Friday from 8 to 4 and Saturday from 9 to 12. So that's for your bulky items. We have 3-bag household garbage pickup on the roadside every week. We have recycling, and we just discussed about yard pickup. So I don't understand the reason why we're going to be looking at opening up the dumps again when the service is already being covered. Well, with that being said, I'm just one person on this. It seems that if we go and we change something, we're going to be confusing the public. And if we're going to be confusing the public, I would hate to see for somebody to think that the dump is open, they're going to go to the dump, they're going to get there and they're not going to be able to drop off all of their load because they didn't quite read what they could drop off or what they couldn't drop off. So although I'm really confused in this because I thought we had it covered. And I would just hate to confuse them anymore. So if you're gonna vote to open up the dump, you're gonna have to open it up for everything. That's all I have to say.
Any further comments from council?
My understanding is that understanding is that the north of town doesn't take yard waste.
It doesn't. It doesn't take yard waste.
What,
Oh, I mean, at this time of year, people are bring their brush and
I'm sorry, I didn't hear anything he had to say. Sorry about that.
John, can you go off video and just go to audio again, because we've lost you? Please.
can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
So my understanding is that the place north of town doesn't take yard waste.
That's
And
correct.
that's what the residents are asking me, is for the dump to open up so they can take their if we go with but the regular garbage, the 3-bag limit and the recycling stays with curbside pickup.
I don't know whether John's still, John, are you still speaking?
No.
Okay. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think one of the issues we're facing is we have a very early spring and people are stuck at home, which is where we want them to stay. So they have started yard cleanup a lot earlier than they normally would. And we are a month away from the town's regularly scheduled yard waste pickup to start to commence. The Selby landfill site does have a very simple drop-off method for yard waste. And you don't even have to enter the property. You just pull up to the gate and it's just off to the side before any of the other facilities are accessed. I really like the list of precautions that have been pulled together for the workers to keep them safe. And I'm wondering because between, as other councillors have said, the 3-bag pickup and the curbside recycling and our very fortunate business partners, or they're not our partners, but local business of the Napanee Waste Solutions, if we just even opened up the Selby dump to allow for extra option for the customers and don't open the North Fred dump until later in the season. Would that be a good balance of services?
Can somebody clarify, does or does not Napanee Waste Solutions take yard waste?
It's not on their site.
No, it isn't. But you had just, I thought you had said, Councillor Johnson, that they did take it.
No, Selby. Our own landfill site.
Roblin landfill?
Yes, our own takes yard waste.
Council, we need to make a decision on this. And we need to make a decision that's going to keep staff safe, and it's going to let people get rid of these trailers full of stuff that they have, but without risking themselves. Councillor
Mayor.
Richardson. Carrie, have you got your hand up there? Okay.
Sorry, Your Worship. I mean, I could comment on the Roblin thing, but it would make more, if you're gonna open one, to open the one in the south end. But in any event, I will make the motion to open up the dump under option 2 with some minor tweak. As far as with our communications, we inform people that the flat rate for a truckload or for a trailer load is what, I'm not sure what it is now. It's probably $10 or $20. You pay the flat rate, whether you got 3 bags in there or you got 10 bags in there or whatever, but you pay the flat rate, you come in, you dump your garbage. There's all kinds of precautions that I read in this report, which should keep both our community safe as well as our attendants safe. And I just don't want to confuse the thing anymore. Just open the dump as it is with the regular health precautions that we have. Flat rate dumping for the garbage and the land waste, and keep it consistent with our area neighbors. My offer from a couple of weeks ago still stands, Your Worship. If they need help down there, I've got free time on my hands.
You're making that by way of motion? Not that you've got time on your hands, not that part.
We'll take that part out, sure.
So what the motion that Councillor Richardson has made is that we go with number 2 with our regular hours. It would not start until next weekend. I mean, it's not going to be this Saturday.
No, there's a good point made that it wasn't going to start till the 18th at least in order to get some stuff into effect. So.
And what do we do with, what are we doing? Just because I want to cover this all in one motion. What are we doing with curbside pickup with bag tags? Sorry, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Kaiser.
Well, I know Terry is making a motion, but I just want to say that.
We don't have a seconder yet. Sorry, didn't mean to speak over you, but we don't have a seconder yet. Does someone want to second Councillor
Looks like
Richard?
Bob's putting his hand up.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Now we can discuss. Sorry,
Okay,
Bob.
thank you for mentioning the bag tags, because that is necessarily has to be discussed simultaneously. And I think if we're going to open the dump, that we're going to reduce the tagless bags to a single per household, recognizing that may be difficult to enforce. What the city of Kingston did was they gave out a free bag tag per household so that every bag had to have a tag on it, but you could get one for free per house. I don't know how you can do that when you buy sheets of 10, but I think we need to reduce it from 3 bags to 1 if we're going to be opening the dump, because even with the surcharge of $10 collected by a deposit box, I still think we need to mitigate some cost. If we start opening the dump, we need to take a look at that. That's my recommendation, that if we open the dump, option 2, that we simultaneously reduce the number of curbside bags to 1 tagless bag.
So,
Mayor Isbester?
Yes.
May I speak when council is complete from a communications point of view, please?
Yes. Susan, can you repeat that? I got cut off at the end.
My apologies. I just would like to speak once council has done discussion before the vote, please.
Okay. All right. No, that's fine. Okay. Councillor Norrie, you had your hand up first, and then I'll go to Councillor Pennell. Councillor Norrie?
Thank you. I just like the way Councillor Richardson said it. We're making things, as Councillor Pennell said, very confusing if we start bouncing all around. Number 2, no bag tags for now, because we can bring them back later when things slow up, and just keep it the way it's brought with no bag tags. We don't confuse the public. We have excellent communication, but if you start putting little caveats here and there, it is going to get very confusing. Okay, the dumps are open again, $10, exact change only, and bag tags no for 3 bags. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pennell?
Thank you. My only concern with the bag tags is that for the residents that are staying at home and putting out garbage, it was my belief that we're giving no bag tags so that they don't have to come into town to buy bag tags, and also financial relief if they're laid off or something. So if we're gonna talk about bag tags at the dump, then I would obviously say, and I understand where you're going with Deputy Mayor with the bags, because our tipping fees and the weight at the dump is a lot different than roadside pickup. So we would have to concern ourselves that way, and I guess if we're gonna do that, then we would have to say that no bag garbage at the dump. And before I vote on this, and Andrew, maybe you can answer this for me. If we vote to open up the dump, is this both dumps? Is this Selfred and Roblin, or is it just Selfred?
If I may, Your Worship and Council, I'd like to speak to a few points that have been raised by Council. Yes, Councillor Pennell, my thought or the idea is that if we are going to open, that we need to open both sites. I don't think we can ever service one part of our township and not service the other thing. The other thing I wanted to quickly speak to is the flat rate of $10 that is proposed was just for bulk waste, as that is the bulk waste charge we currently have in our fee structure for our waste management bylaw. And Susan can probably talk to how that works better. I'm not sure if we can apply that fee to other waste streams such as garbage without the notification to the public and everything else that goes with fee changes and bylaws. And then just in regards to the deputy mayor's comments about bag tags and the reduction, staff, Tara, Bruce, and myself, as well as other people that answer the phones, it's been a very, very, very challenging week, with first going from unlimited back to 3 bags. For instance, I had an email from Waste Management today that there was 2 homes on County Road 9. Between the 2 of them, they had 60 bags out. And then the gentleman proceeded, we tagged them, can't pick them up. That gentleman proceeded to take them and drop them off at other residents, which bylaw is aware of it and tried to follow up on. So any changes we make, we have to be cognizant that the public has been oversaturated with notices for COVID, but as well as wasted. So I leave it with council's educated direction on this.
Thank you, Andrew. And I think too that we need to check with Waste Management, because on County Road 9, certainly where I used to live, there would probably be 10 to 12 residents on each road. And I know that the deputy mayor had said that he saw some bags. It was County Road 9 or County Road 8, but there are multiple residents, private lanes. So I'd want to make sure that we checked out if it is somebody just being a little overzealous or being extremely
Your Worship, if I may jump on that, I haven't confirmed it, but somebody commented to me that at Lasher Road, where there was, let's say, 15 to 20 bags in front of 6 or 8 mailboxes, that the pile of bags was left today at collection. I haven't confirmed that, but if that's the case, when you have a laneway with a name and a number of mailboxes, it should be pretty simple math to say, well, there's probably 3 per mailbox. I think we're good to go, but that wasn't picked up. And so I think we do have a problem with Waste Management. Boy, I really want to take a look at that contract again. And, but anyways, that's a whole other issue. I'm okay with leaving the free 3 bags per household curbside and going back to the dump. Obviously, there's an issue and people need to start moving. I think we've dealt with enough physical distancing and physical barriers and non-contact. Plus, by and large, they're outside as well, so it's not really as risky as being inside. It's all about physical contact, and I think staff have found a lot of good steps for precautions to protect our staff and the public back and forth. I'm okay with option 2 and leaving the bag tags as are for now, minimizing the confusion and changes, just because then what people will hear in the public is the dump's open, but you better read their things before you go.
Okay. Is there anything else from council? Because certainly Susan wants to speak too. Councillor Johnson.
I agree with the proposal of going ahead with option 2 and leaving the 3 free bags for town pickup as well.
Thank you. Susan, we had some information to do with communication or maybe even bylaws.
Yes, so just for council's thoughts, and obviously this is council's decision, from a communications point of view, and I'm in charge of communications regarding the emergency. It's been a challenge with the decisions that have changed regarding waste collection. As Andrew alluded to this week, the message, although we had it out on every medium we could get it out to this week, people still did not get the message that the change had been from unlimited to 3 bags. We're attempting to keep a consistent message through this pandemic, and the medical officer of health, the province, and the municipality are all telling the public that the most important thing is to stay home and stay safe during this pandemic. Changes to opening services now that have been closed, it's a challenge to get out to the public that it continues to be a pandemic and we continue to have a serious issue that we need to address and communicate. But we're going to reopen services, and that's a challenge for staff. I mean, we will abide by council's decision, obviously, but just recognizing that getting the communication out is a challenge. We do have yard waste pickup that's coming up. It's 3 weeks away. I recognize that people are out doing it earlier than normal. We have that. We have brush pickup. We do have private options for people to drop off large items. And given that we have had a change in the bag tags and communicating that, to make another change would be a challenge. But I'll leave that for council's consideration.
Any further comments from council? Susan, can I have the resolution, the motion reread, please?
I will need some clarification where it's option 2. With the precautions, with all of the precautions, and bag tags are continued to be 3 per residence with no bag tags required.
Mover and seconder, is that what your intention was?
Sorry, Your Worship. Opening the dump with the 3 bag tags. Yeah, 3 bag tags. Yeah.
And the seconder on that was Councillor Norrie, was it?
Correct. I agree.
So we're opening both landfills. I'm assuming that that will include of course, Roblin is yard waste, but they're just a transfer station. So they don't take bulky items, they just take, or do you chuck them up in the bins there? Andrew, can you help me with that, please?
Yes, Your Worship, we try to encourage residents with large items such as mattresses and couches and so forth to go to South Fred. However, there is a bin for bulky waste at the Roblin site. Further to that, when council makes the decision, if we could be very clear in regards to the transaction of money and the fees to be charged or not charged, that's one of my greatest concerns with social distancing and multi-touch surfaces is the money and the attendance. So if we could get clear direction, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Now, is that contained within the list of precautions for number 2?
Yes, Your Worship. At the bottom of that, it explicitly said that we wouldn't receive any fees, and the option to council was to have the bags at the same limit that they are at curbside. Well, I'll leave that for council to make a decision on.
Council, you're understanding where we're at in that?
If I may, Your Worship, yeah, like I say, what I was suggesting is that when people show up, they know they're going to pay $10 to empty the back of their truck in the dump. It's as simple as that. And if it's explained to them at the gate that it's almost like a $10 entry fee. You get a $10 entry fee, you get to empty the back of your truck up and you drive out. That's the way the rules are. The drop box is fine. In our community, we make sure when we inform them that there's a $10 drop-off fee, that you have to have the exact cash with respect to social distancing, and it's explained to them before they enter the yard with the lad that's at the stop sign at the gate.
Okay. Andrew, sorry, Deputy Mayor Kaiser.
I just wanted to say that what Susan said a moment ago has really resonated with me. I really think that maybe we should delay this decision. It's the 9th of April. The emergency measures and COVID separations and everything, there's talk about May 1st, June 1st, July 1st. According to the EOC and Dr. Kieran Moore's comments this morning, we are seeing some flattening of the curve locally. He applauded our efforts. And when you look at the numbers and the stats for this health unit compared to our neighbors even, and elsewhere in the province, we're doing things right. And I think that opening the dump at this time flies in the face of that. I know people are bored. I know people are at home and they're doing things, and the weather has been decent for it. I'm dealing with that on my own in a completely different way here, but I want to fall short of making a motion to defer because I really think we need to delay this decision for a couple more weeks. We've done really well so far at shutting things down and distancing, and this is one step backwards that maybe we don't need to take at this time. It's still early. I'm gonna pause there.
Okay, Councillor Pennell and then Councillor Norrie. And then I want to ask Susan a question, please. But you guys go ahead first. Councillor Pennell?
Thank you. I think that maybe if maybe you hear my tone or whatever, I just think that if it was if it had to do with household waste and that we had problems with vermits and stuff like that, and that could be a problem with our own health, that would be a totally different discussion for me right now. But for this being waste from around the house, the trees, the leaves, that sort of stuff, I just can't see that would be cause for us to put somebody in harm's way after the message that we've been putting out there of stay home, stay safe. You know, on a whole different matter, it's just like in real estate, they're telling us to stay home, stay safe, but then open the door up to strangers. It doesn't make sense right now. And to me, this right now, we're confusing the issue, what we're allowed to put in, what we can't put in. I'm sorry if somebody wants to rake their lawn and pick up the limbs off the trees and stuff, put a pile out the road and we'll pick it up. It's not like there isn't a service for that. So I just want to make that clear, and I'll wait for either a deferral motion or a vote. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Norrie, and then Councillor Richardson, did you have your hand up after that?
I'll speak briefly, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well, Councillor Norrie was before you, so I'll come to you next.
Just a side note, I received a text from Councilor McCormack. He cannot hear a thing and says he cannot vote. He just wanted me to tell you that.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everybody that we're not doing anything any different than our neighbors. All our neighbors around us are still functioning as far as waste and dumps go. So we're not really doing anything outside the box or doing anything on the leading edge. We're just joining and keeping some consistency to what our area municipal partners are doing. So I forgot I was going to mention that earlier, but.
Susan, where do we sit with the fact that Councillor McCormack can't sit in on this? Is it like he left the room?
Yes, we're just trying to see if he can call in using our phone number.
Okay, we'll just take a break for a minute here, folks, without talking about anything else, and see if we can't get Councillor McCormack back in the room again. All right, guys, this obviously is not the perfect system.
Nothing ever is.
No, but I tell you, it's better than trying to make each other sick.
Mayor Isbester?
Yes.
Councillor McCormack's going to try to call in. I just gave him the ID number, so he's just going to try to call into the meeting.
Yep, we'll just see if that works. We'll give him a few more minutes. Thank you.
Hello?
Councillor McCormack is back with us.
Yeah, technology.
I will call back to order then. We're back up to a full complement. So, I guess maybe the best way for me is to try and review, to go back to what council had. I've got to bring it up again here. My computer shut down. guess, Susan, if you could maybe let Councillor McCormack know what the motion was, please.
Yes, just one moment.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the motion is for option 2 with the precautions, surcharge of $10, flat rate for anything brought in, that there would be no handling of cash. It would have to be exact amount of cash and the regular hours. And that the bag tags would continue to be waived for the 3 bags per residence, and that both landfills would be open. That's the motion.
And that's made by Councillor Richardson and seconded by who?
Councillor Norrie?
Okay.
Do you have any questions, John? Because I know you were sitting on the outside when this was being discussed, so I'll certainly allow you to have questions.
No, at this point, Your Worship, I'll just wait for the vote.
Okay. Did you want to hear anyone's statements over again?
Not for now, because I think we can, whatever we decide on, we can revisit this down the road.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Kaiser had his hand up first, and then I'm going to let Councillor Pennell go, and then I'm going to call the question.
I'm not sure when John dropped out, and I wanted to make sure he heard that I had raised the comment that I really think we need to wait. That as much as people are home and bored and everything else, the physical distancing is a must, and we've been having success at flattening the curve, at least locally. And I'm not going to point finger and say what worked and what didn't work. I think every single thing that we've done is one less link in the chain, and anything that we undo, like reopening the dumps, is moving backwards and moving in the wrong direction at this time. And I wanted to make sure that that was said again. Just unfortunately, John's the first one when we go to the vote, and I wanted to make sure he heard that.
Councillor Pennell, and then I'm going to ask you, John, did you hear our clerk Susan Beckles' comments?
No, hardly any of it, no.
All right, so Councillor Pennell, and then I'm going to ask Susan to come back on. Sorry, Susan, and say what you had said again, just so that every council member said every bit of information. Councillor Pennell, and then we'll go to Susan.
Thank you, Worship. That was mainly what my question was. I wanted to make sure that John heard that, and also that he, again, I'm just gonna say it one more time because, sorry that I didn't mean it like that. I'm gonna say it again, is that all services are being looked after. We have garbage pickup, and we can have the yard waste picked up. Yard large items can go to another place. But my main thing was that he did hear Susan's comments. Thank you.
Is council okay with having Susan do the communication piece?
Yeah.
Yes, am I seeing nods?
Yeah.
Yes, I got enough nods to have it do. Susan, please, could you bring through the communication again, please?
Just for council's consideration, from a communications standpoint regarding the pandemic, it's been very challenging to change the decision for the unlimited garbage bags per week to 3 bags, as we've seen and Andrew had spoken to this week. Even though we had messages out on all of our platforms, the message still did not get out to some residents. So the first week it's been a challenge, and there have been more than 3 bags out in some properties. Changing the direction, given that we're trying to get a consistent message out with the province, the public health, local public health, and the municipality, that people need to stay home. It's making a difference, and continued safe measures in place is what our message has been. And we've trying to be very consistent with the other levels of government. And to now make a change and reopen a service just when we're making headway and flattening the curve, it's a very difficult message to communicate to the public. And it's just for council's consideration. The services are provided in other ways, and I just wanted council to consider that.
Okay, Councillor Johnson, and then this is it.
I just had a question, considering Susan's comments and our discussions. With everything that we talked about, I don't remember anybody saying a date to open the dumps.
I believe it would have been the 18th, which is a week from Saturday. Okay, I'm going to call a question. John, are you still with us?
Difficultly, yes.
Okay. You got everything, though? You were able to hear everything?
I heard Susan's comments, yeah, and were Susan's comments made before or after the motion was put forward?
After.
Okay.
I think during the conversation, she wanted to be able to speak to us about, because she is head of communications for the EOC. She wanted to just say how tough it was to get stuff out to people. And I had already spoken about what Dr. Moore had said.
And are councillors Richardson and Norrie still comfortable with the motion then?
Councillors Richardson and Norrie, they can't.
I am.
See you. Yeah. Councillor Richardson is saying yes. Councillor Norrie?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, they're both still comfortable with it.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to call the question here. Councillor McCormack.
Yes.
Councillor Richardson.
Yes.
Councillor Pennell.
No.
Councillor Norrie.
Yes.
Councillor Johnson.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kaiser.
No.
Mayor Isbester, no. So 1, 2, 3, 4 yeses and 1, 2, 3 noes. So the motion is carried. On to 4.5, financial services. Paul, do you speak to us about anything?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, my mouse locked up there. There's a fair amount of information contained in the body of this report. If council is willing, I can try and zip through it fairly carefully, and then also our director of general manager of infrastructure services will chime in on a little bit towards the end. So I wanted to update council as to our financial situation. As you can see from the financial implications, or just above the financial implications, it talks about the fact that the last time we met, we weren't sure how many people would end up paying. We did receive payments for water. It was down from last year, but still continue to flow in. And that's why we that combined with the notification that we will be receiving OMPF combines together to be able to take our projections out as far as cash flow a little bit longer. In this, we're saying that taking into account the county levy on June 30th, the fact that the province has announced a 90-day deferral for the school boards, taking into account our OPP monthly billings, decreased township spending, the capital projects that are listed below in the chart, and all the cash flows that come out of that, as well as our own PF gas tax and OCIF funding. If the county were to continue with the June 30th, we would be able to get through to the end of July with our current financial situation in the bank. And if the county were to defer, that we'd be able to make it probably about an extra month. We have listed the capital projects. I can go through them, or I can just skip over them. It really depends on council's wishes. I should say not skip over them, but highlight a couple of them and then be available for questions as to any of the others.
Okay, council, okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
I did want to point out, as I said, I'll be here for any questions. But on, I think it's about the 4th page, we start talking about roads, water, Robinson Street construction. I did want to highlight that construction job had already started. And the fact that it is water sewer would make it a critical asset. So therefore, staff is recommending to move forward. I will also talk about surface treatment and gravel crushing, as did provide some information for that about council providing direction on delaying the work. To that point, I believe that Mr. Defoe has received more information from Good Roads and from various organizations around the province. So I would ask if Peter could maybe step in at this point.
Through your worship, just to further add to what Paul was saying, so basically the Ontario Good Roads Association, as well as other professional organizations like the Consulting Engineers of Ontario and the Municipal Engineers Association, they've been able to confirm that not only is the work essential to continue with road water projects, that is deemed critical infrastructure. So, and we're seeing that very typical across the province as well. We've done several, we've consulted with many different municipalities, and for the bulk of it, most municipalities, assuming cash flow is there and it still fits within the municipal budgets, proceeding as budget permits.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. So as far as the capital work, what we've, the information that we've provided and the recommendations that we've made, as I did note in the body of the report, the original council approved budget was just under $6.2 million. We've reduced, or I should say deferred, about $2.5 million of those projects. So including the Water Street project and the other projects that Peter was referring to, we're looking at just under 3.7 million. So we've dropped just almost half of the projects, or I should say we have deferred just about half of the projects until the current situation clears up. That would also include the small vehicles that we had spoken about earlier. And I would open it up to any council questions at this point.
Madam Mayor, Ray Cowrie, just before, I just think it's worth adding that the County of Lennox and Addington also just received a letter today from KFNA, LNA Public Health from Dr. Moore that basically supported, as long as social distancing could take place in a safe way, supporting the continuation of road infrastructure development within the County of Lennox and Addington. So I just thought that was important information as well from Public Health.
Okay. Okay, council, questions of our financial GM, please. And John, you'll have to speak up if you need to get my attention, because I don't have you on the screen.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Kaiser first, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Paul, you said about half of the projects have been deferred. In dollars, though, that's it's smaller than half. Dollar-wise, it's what, a third?
Yeah, I believe it's probably in between a third and a half. Yeah.
Okay, that's it, Deputy Mayor Kaiser.
Yes, thank you.
Anything further, further questions of council? Okay, council, you have a recommendation that council for information, the 2020 cash flow as per April report, and further that council provide direction in areas deemed necessary. So the only one that was really discussed are the capital projects, and Peter has reported to us that they really are deemed essential and can go ahead. So if you don't have any further questions and you agree with what has been brought forward, I need someone to make the motion, please.
So moved with the roads included.
Yeah, okay, by Deputy Mayor Kaiser, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Any further comments or questions? Okay, council, roll call. Councillor McCormack?
McCormack, yes. McCormack, yes.
Ward 2, yes.
3 yes.
4, yes.
5, yes.
Kaiser, yes.
Isbester, yes, carried. Thank you, council, and thank you, Paul. We go on to financial services, 4.6.
Mayor Isbester,
Yes, I'm sorry.
could council receive the correspondence from Jewel Engineering as well, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Can we include it? We've already voted on that. I need a separate motion to receive the information from Jewel Engineering regarding the capital projects that were included in 4.5. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kaiser, seconded by Councillor Pennell. Again, I need to go through the roll call. And so that's going to be.
McCormack, yes.
Okay. Yep.
Ward 2, yes.
Ward 3 yes.
Ward 4, yes.
5, yes.
Kaiser, yes.
Isbester, yes. And Susan, I'm going to call that 4.5.1 when you look at my sheets, okay? If that's right, or A or something that you can do.
Thank you.
4.6, financial services, tenants and leases. Is this Paul again? Sorry. Is Peter or Paul that I've got coming? Sorry, both.
Madam Mayor, it's Paul.
Okay. So you have a lot of information there. Are there questions that, I'm trying to get the report up here.
So if I may, Your Worship.
Thank you, because I'm trying to get mine to work here.
In the final paragraph, the recommendation is that on a case-by-case basis, as tenants apply, that an agreement would be entered into that any deferral is made up at some point during the remainder of their lease. So it could just be a delay of a month or two, but it's caught up eventually or whatever, but it will be caught up within the time frame of their lease. That's the proposal, correct?
Yeah. Correct.
I mean, I'm okay with this. I think our federal government and possibly provincial government are going to make enough assistance available that it's just a question of time, not of anything else. And quite frankly, I'm willing to do what we can, because having no tenant after all this is far worse than missing a month or two here or there.
So you're making the motion to receive for information and further that council authorize staff to enter into agreements with tenants that apply for rent deferral with a repayment plan. Are you making?
That's exactly what I made.
Thank you very much. And a seconder on that? Yeah, Councillor Richardson. Any further comments or questions? I think that certainly makes it fair. Oh, sorry, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just sitting here and just hit me when we're doing this with the rents. How is it being treated differently from, say, a tenant that's at the SPC where the building is locked out, compared to a tenant that's maybe down in town? Never mind. Thank you. I just answered my own question. Thank you.
If I may add one thing, and I don't know, may I?
Yes, certainly.
I don't know the time frame of all the leases, but if any of the leases were to come up, say between now and the 1st of August, it might not allow for an adequate time frame for them to catch up. And maybe the agreement might look at an extension into the next term, as long as it's included within that extension. Because we may be in this for 3 or 4 months, and there just may not be time for them to get caught up within the current term of the lease, in some cases on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, and that's a good point too. And Paul, if I might go back to you, would that be a suggested addition or alteration to the resolution to make sure that we've got all our bases covered?
Yes, I agree with that, to approach it on a case-by-case basis, yes.
Okay, so you made the motion. So do you wish to amend it to that?
I'd like to amend it to include that if the time frame does not permit, on a case-by-case basis, that our staff approach it with reason to put it into the next term of the lease agreement.
Okay, so you were the mover, right? So who was the seconder? Okay, so Councillor
Richardson.
Richardson, you agreeable to that, Councillor Richardson, as an amendment?
Absolutely. I think our staff will probably work as hard as they can to keep our tenants in there. I think we've got to do everything we can to help our tenants stay, to come back, because there's going to be a lot of places where they're not going to. So.
Oh, for sure, no. Okay, so everybody's good on the motion? Okay, roll call.
McCormack, yes.
Ward 2, yes.
Ward 3, yes.
Ward 4, yes.
Ward 5, yes.
Kaiser, yes.
Bruce Bester, yes, carried. Thanks very much. Now we're on to statements by members, and I'll go with the deputy mayor first and follow up with, we'll go by ward from there, if that's okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have much to say other than I know everybody's working hard and diligently for the best of everyone involved and concerned. I want to just draw attention to our EOC this morning in the comments that we are having positive effect, at least locally and certainly in Eastern Ontario, better than some other areas. And every step matters, every step counts. So, but thank you to all of our frontline and all of our staff working from home, working from in the office, and taking every step and every opportunity to minimize and curb the spread. Thank you.
Thank you. Ward 1.
Well, just coincidentally, while we're on the phone this afternoon, I just got a text from my daughter. We have a new grandson named Easton, born a few minutes ago, and 9 pounds even. That's my comments for today.
Congratulations.
Yeah, try and beat that now.
Congratulations, Sean.
Oh, yeah, throw the gauntlet down. Did you say the name was Easter?
Easton,
No, I heard you.
not Easter, no.
Ward 2, sorry about that.
Very little to say, Your Worship. I just want to thank our staff for working as diligently as they are. These times are very trying for those that still have to go to work every day, whether it's to get up and go to your home office or get up and go into one of our facilities. And I just want to extend my thanks out to them. And by all means, don't tire yourselves out. If you need help, make sure you make us aware of it so we can make sure we can get the help for you.
Ward 3.
Thank you, Worship. Not too much to say either. Just again, like to thank the staff. Downtown is kind of neat with the painting on the sidewalks. It's something that whoever picked that design was great, because it's something that can stay. You know, if this is over fast and it doesn't wear out, it's a lot better than a simple line. I was really impressed when I saw that. You know, it's a hard one, but we want people to be at least 2 meters away. And, you know, even if you're in the same household and you're walking downtown, if you could try to stay 2 meters away from each other, because perception is a lot of things. There's somebody else that are walking downtown that aren't in the same household to say, well, they're walking together, I can walk together. So just that. And I hope everything goes well this weekend, first long weekend, and we're in this with the boat ramps, the fire departments, and everything else that we're going to be challenged with. So with that being said, happy weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Ward 4.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple, I'll probably be brief. regards to the MECG meetings, I don't need an answer. I'm just curious, is there any way council can get a link, not to be involved, not to participate, but just listen on mute? So we have a time or right away time of what's going on just in the back of our mind instead of waiting for memos. That's one idea staff can talk about, get back to us. I won't tie them up right now. And the other thing, a lot of us have had calls that we've heard our premier, Mr. Ford, say, don't go to your cottages. He's been awesome at that. Our prime minister said he's going to visit his family at their cottage, which is a mixed message. But the Golden Horseshoe area, I watch local news in that area from Hamilton through to Toronto. No mayor is telling people to not go to their cottage, which most of them come out our way. Can we send a letter to them asking to start, and telling their members or their constituents to please stay home and don't go to cottages in these smaller towns because it will affect us? And that's my two ideas. And thank you, staff, for all your hard work. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ward 5.
As with everyone else, I sincerely want to thank staff for their hard work. And unfortunately, they are the front lines for receiving the complaints. And I would like them to also remember, for every complaint they receive, there are 10 people who are happy with the work they're doing, or 100 people who are happy and aren't making the phone calls. So thank you for your bravery in coming to work and listening to those calls, and stay safe, everybody.
I guess that's me then, right? We don't have Ward 6, do we? I want to thank staff on both the county and the town level. The cooperation between that and the agencies, and both the federal and provincial governments. I know things change almost daily, and I really want to recognize not just this council, but also the federal and provincial governments, and the fact that they are reacting to change as need be. They are making sure that decisions can be adjusted so that all things are considered. For instance, with campgrounds, they changed midnight on Saturday night to say that people that did not have a residence other than the campground that they considered their home for the summer, but were coming from the States, that they would be able to go into that to isolate, just like anybody else that was going home. So they're reacting. This is not something that we've had a rehearsal for. So it's good. The frontline health staff have been absolutely amazing. Volunteers, people stepping forward that are asking what they can do to help. And they've done it a lot just by getting groups together on Facebook and on Twitter and church groups and so on that are out delivering food to shut-ins and seniors. It's really, trailers being offered to the healthcare workers that don't want to go home, not that they don't want to go home, but they don't want to take the chance of going home between shifts. So all kinds of things, not necessarily done by the town, but done by people that care about this town. And I want to thank each and every one of them. I can't say enough about even council. I know that you're under pressure all the time, and give people the answers that maybe they don't want to hear, but I know you've all done well with it, and you've all reached out when need be. And again, we didn't have a rehearsal for this. So I just want to thank you all for all you do. It's a good group to work with. And I guess too, the same thing. Happy Easter. I like it because I won't have to cook for a change. So it's kind of nice. Anyway, we have bylaws here. Bylaw number 2020-0025 to regulate certain matters related to cannabis production facilities.
Your worship, may I?
You sure can.
So recently, I think last week, one day I was speaking to an engineer with OMAFRA about cannabis production and nuisance. We have, so out of that discussion, it was made clear to me that, I don't have it right there. Cannabis is defined by the provincial government as an operation under agriculture or the growing of a crop. And they are currently reviewing where it fits within the normal farm practices. And as such, the normal farm practices deals with 7 levels of nuisance, and odor is one of them. And part of the dealing with odor as a nuisance is also imposing regulations dealing with minimum distance separation from residences or residential developments. And those are two distinctions. So I don't have a problem with this bylaw at this time because we don't have provincial regulation to supersede it, but it may be something that we could get challenged on in the future, that if it's deemed a normal farm practice and a minimum distance of 900 300 meters or something to that effect is deemed appropriate, and if our bylaw supersedes that, it may get challenged. And that's the beauty of the normal farm practice, is it allows for that. So at this time, in the absence of those regulations, I agree with this bylaw, but I just want it to be noted that the provincial government is working on these avenues at the same time at their level.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kaiser. Does anyone from council have questions on why we're doing this at this time? Everybody's aware of our needs and putting this in place right now and the problems that we've been having.
Mayor Isbester, could I speak to it when council is finished?
Anything further, council, or can Susan speak? Is everyone ready? Okay, no, go ahead, Susan, please.
Just regarding what Deputy Mayor Kaiser just said, if there were to be any provincial regulations that would come into effect after this, they would supersede any municipal bylaws.
Okay. So for second and third reading. Moved by Councilor Brown, seconded by Deputy Mayor Kaiser. Okay, we need to vote again.
McCormack, yes.
Ward 2, yes.
Ward 3, yes.
Ward 4, yes.
Ward 5, yes.
Kaiser, yes.
Okay, that's 6.1. Thank you very much, unanimously. Bylaw to confirm the proceedings. Bylaw number 2020-0026 to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Greater Napanee, special session held April 9th, 2020. Deputy Mayor Kaiser. Now, in favor of that. Yeah, we got to go through it again. I'll never get used to this, having to write down these recorded votes. Councilor McCormack.
McCormack, yes.
Ward 2, yes.
Ward 3, yes.
Ward 4, yes.
Ward 5, yes.
Kaiser says, I hope you never have to get used to it, and yes.
Yeah, and Isbester says the same thing. I just have to be able to make Susan understand my writing. Motion for adjournment.
McCormack.
Go look at pictures, I hope. Okay, moved by Council McCormack, seconded by Deputy Mayor Kaiser. Roll call, please.
McCormack, yes.
Ward 2, yes.
Ward 3, yes.
Ward 4, yes.
Ward 5, yes.
Kaiser, yes.
Oh, no, I'm not deputy mayor anymore. Mayor Isbester, I was thinking about something else, sorry. Mayor Isbester, yes, carried unanimously. For all of those that joined us this afternoon, thank you very much. Of course, you can replay it at your leisure anytime. For council, for getting through another one of these virtual meetings. I can't thank our IT staff and certainly the people that are out in the other rooms here. Susan and so on. I don't want to single out anybody, but they make this job easy. And you're right, Deputy Mayor Kaiser, we don't want to do this for the rest of our lives. Have them live streamed, but let's try and be in the same. Have a good weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.